A convenience store clerk helped a quiet janitor until she saw his face on the company's annual report. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. You might never expect how a simple act of kindness can change a life. Imagine, just for a moment, you are a convenience store clerk, working the late shift in a quiet neighborhood. Your shift is long and the store is mostly empty, except for a few regular customers that come and go. One evening, as you restock the shelves, a man enters the store. He's in his 50s, dressed in faded work clothes, his shoes worn, and his hair tousled. He doesn't say much, just picks up a bottle of water and quietly approaches the counter. You smile politely, but he seems to be in a hurry. As he's about to pay, the man accidentally knocks over a display, causing a small mess on the floor. You instinctively crouch down to help him pick up the items, not thinking much of it, as it's just part of the job. The man is quiet, mumbling an apology as he bends down to assist you. Don't worry about it, you say, offering a smile. He looks up at you for a brief moment, his eyes sincere but distant. You get the sense that he's someone who prefers to stay under the radar. The man pays for his bottle of water and thanks you, then exits the store, leaving you to finish cleaning up. Nothing extraordinary, just another late night at work. But little did you know that one simple act of kindness would soon turn into something far more remarkable. As you continue with your shift, you can't help but think about the man. He didn't seem like much, just an older guy who had a rough day. But his quiet demeanor stayed with you, lingering in your mind as the night wore on. The next morning, as you settle down with your morning coffee, you get a call from your friend, Jessica. You won't believe who I just saw in the company's annual report, she says excitedly. You pause, curious. Who? The janitor you helped last night, Jessica continues. It turns out he's actually the CEO of a major tech company. His name is Mark Reynolds. Can you believe it? Your heart skips a beat. You remember the man's face, his humble expression as he tried to apologize for the accident in the store. Mark Reynolds, the CEO? It just doesn't make sense. Could this really be true? You're stunned by the revelation, and as the days pass, you try to put the puzzle together. How could someone like him, someone who didn't seem to want attention, be hiding such an important position in the business world? It makes you question everything. Was he testing you? Was it all a setup? Or maybe he was just a humble billionaire, quietly going about his day. The thought of it makes your head spin. You can't help but wonder if that simple act of helping him was more significant than you thought. But what will happen next? Will you ever see him again? And what could this revelation mean for you? Stay tuned as we uncover the twists that follow in the next part of this incredible story. I still couldn't get over the fact that Mark Reynolds, the quiet janitor I helped at the convenience store, was the CEO of a major tech company. It felt surreal. I kept replaying our brief interaction over and over in my mind. How could someone so humble, so down-to-earth, be hiding such a powerful identity? Was it possible that the man I saw in the store really was the CEO of a company that made headlines all the time? My head spun with questions. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than I realized. The next few days were filled with a strange mixture of curiosity and disbelief. I couldn't focus on anything at work. All I could think about was Mark. What had brought him to my store that night? Was he just a regular guy? Or was there something deeper at play? I didn't want to believe he was just a humble billionaire passing by, testing the kindness of strangers. But then again, how could I deny the facts in front of me? Mark Reynolds. The name kept repeating in my mind like a song stuck in my head. That afternoon, while I was stocking shelves, the doorbell chimed as a familiar face walked through the store. It was Mark. He wasn't in his work clothes this time. He wore a navy blue suit that was pressed to perfection, and his hair was neatly styled. He looked every bit the powerful CEO that I had read about online. My heart skipped a beat. Mark, I said, almost in a whisper. He gave me a friendly smile, like he had known me for years. It's me. I thought I'd stop by and thank you for your help the other night, he said, his voice warm and sincere. I was frozen for a moment, unsure how to react. Of course, I'm just doing my job, I managed to say, trying to hide the nervousness in my voice. Mark chuckled lightly. Well, I appreciate it anyway. Can I buy you a coffee? I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face this man who had been living a double life right under my nose. But I couldn't help myself. I agreed, and we walked to the nearby coffee shop together. As we sat down, Mark explained how he had been working on some personal projects and had to take a break from his usual routine. I know it must sound strange, but sometimes I like to get away from the corporate world and experience life like everyone else, he said, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man, the head of a tech empire, was talking about stepping away from his power and wealth just to feel normal again. The more we talked, the more I realized how genuine he was. He was nothing like the cold, corporate figure I had imagined. He wasn't concerned with the wealth or status that came with his position. He just wanted to connect with people on a real level. So, what made you come into the store that night? I asked, trying to make sense of the situation. Mark paused for a moment, his eyes growing more serious. Honestly, I wanted to test something, he said, his voice quiet. I wanted to see how people would treat me if they didn't know who I was. And you treated me with kindness and respect, just like anyone else. I needed to experience that again. I was speechless. The man sitting across from me, this billionaire CEO, was looking for something I had taken for granted, human connection. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, but I couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. Mark Reynolds wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a man who had been searching for something more, something deeper than his wealth could offer. And somehow, I had become a part of that search. As the days passed, we continued to meet up occasionally, sharing stories over coffee or walking through the park. He started to open up about his life, about the challenges of being in the public eye, and the loneliness that came with it. I found myself drawn to him, not because of his money or status, but because of his vulnerability and honesty. He didn't want to be treated differently just because of his success. He just wanted to be seen for who he was. Eventually, Mark made me an offer I never expected. He wanted to hire me as a consultant for one of his companies, a small tech startup he had been working on in secret. He said he admired my creativity and work ethic and thought I could bring something valuable to the table. It was an offer that was hard to refuse. But as much as I wanted to accept, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something I didn't understand about Mark's intentions. Was he just offering me a job because he felt guilty? Or was there something more? But then, one evening, Mark invited me to a company gala. It was a lavish event held at an upscale hotel, filled with executives, investors, and influencers. I had never been to anything like it before. As I walked into the ballroom, I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me. And then I saw Mark, standing at the front with a microphone in his hand. He caught sight of me and smiled, giving me a nod. He had always been kind to me, but now I realized how important he was in this world. The event was a success, and as the night went on, I found myself feeling more and more comfortable in this world that was so different from my own. It wasn't just because of the money or the glamour. It was because of Mark. He had shown me that there was more to life than just the struggle to survive. He had given me a glimpse into a world where anything was possible and where kindness was still valued above all else. But the night wasn't over yet. As the gala ended, Mark pulled me aside and said something that caught me off guard. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot. I didn't just bring you here because of your talent, he said, his voice low. I brought you here because I believe in you. I believe in your heart. You've changed my life in ways you don't even realize. Those words hit me harder than anything else. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about a job or a career. It was about something deeper. Mark had found something in me that he had been searching for all along. Someone who would see him for who he truly was, not just the man behind the corporate title. As we stood there, surrounded by the glittering lights of the ballroom, I knew that this was just the beginning of something much more than I could have ever imagined. I was still trying to digest everything that had happened at the gala. Mark had been so kind, so open with me, and his words had left an indelible mark on my heart. He believed in me, not just for my talent, but for who I was as a person. It was something I had never expected, especially from someone with so much power and influence. I had always struggled with self-doubt, never thinking I was good enough for the opportunities that seemed so far out of my reach. But now, Mark had given me the confidence to see that maybe I did have something worth offering. Over the next few weeks, Mark and I spent more time together, not just as colleagues, but as friends. He invited me to more company events, and each time, I felt more and more at ease in his world. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story than he had told me. Yes, he had been kind to me, but there was something almost too perfect about it all. He was offering me opportunities, opening doors I had only ever dreamed of, and I couldn't help but wonder, was it just because he felt indebted to me for my kindness, or was there something more? One afternoon, as I sat in my small apartment sipping a cup of coffee, I received a call from Mark. He sounded a bit different, a little more serious than usual. "I need to see you," he said. "Can you meet me at the office later today?" My stomach flipped. I agreed, but I had no idea what to expect. When I arrived at his office, Mark greeted me with a faint smile, but there was a noticeable tension in the air. He motioned for me to sit down. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened at the gala," he began, his voice steady but somber. "And I want to be honest with you about something." I leaned forward, sensing that this was the moment I had been waiting for. The truth, the real reason why Mark had come into my life. "I never meant for things to go this far," Mark continued. "I didn't intend to get you involved in my world, but I can't ignore what's been happening between us." His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a vulnerability I hadn't noticed before. "I need you to know that I'm not just helping you because of the kindness you showed me. I'm not trying to repay you for that moment at the store. The truth is, I've been lonely for years, and I've been looking for someone who could help me reconnect with who I really am. And when I met you, I felt that connection." His words took me by surprise. The man I had seen as so confident, so powerful, was now admitting to a deep loneliness, something I had never expected. It made me pause and reconsider everything I had believed about him. "I know this might sound crazy, but I've been thinking about this a lot," he said, his tone softer now. "What we have, what I feel when I'm around you, it's not just about business or charity. It's about something more." The room felt heavy with his confession. I didn't know what to say. Was I just another person he was trying to save, or was there something real between us? But before I could respond, Mark continued. "I want to offer you more than just a job. I want to offer you a partnership, not just in business, but in life. I know this is unexpected, but I feel like this could be something meaningful, something that could change both of our lives." I sat there in silence, processing his words. My heart raced, and I couldn't decide if I should be excited or terrified. "You're asking me to take a chance on something I don't fully understand," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." Mark nodded, understanding. "I know it's a lot, but I need you to understand that I'm not asking for anything more than a chance. A chance to see if what we have can really go somewhere." His words hung in the air, and I realized that this was the moment of truth. If I chose to take this step with Mark, everything would change. There would be no going back. The uncertainty of it all was overwhelming. But there was a part of me that knew I couldn't let fear hold me back. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. "Okay," I said finally, my voice steady. "Let's take this chance. But I need to know that you're being honest with me. No more secrets." Mark smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. "No more secrets," he promised. From that moment on, things between us started to change. We worked closely together, growing the company and building something real. The more we worked, the more I began to see just how much Mark cared, not just about business, but about building a future where he didn't have to hide behind his wealth and power. And as for me, I began to realize that what we had was something real, something worth fighting for. But as our relationship grew, so did the challenges. There were still people in the company who saw me as nothing more than a newcomer, someone who didn't belong in the world of high-powered executives and million-dollar deals. And there was always the lingering doubt. Did Mark truly see me as an equal, or was I just another project for him to fix? The answers weren't easy to find. But in the midst of all the uncertainty, there was one thing I knew for sure. Mark was no longer just the CEO. He was someone who had let me into his life, his heart, and now it was time for me to trust him completely. And so, as we faced the future together, we began to realize that the journey ahead wasn't just about business. It was about building a life together. I still remember the first time Mark had looked at me with such sincerity, and I knew that everything was about to change. We had both agreed to take the chance, but with that agreement came new pressures, new expectations. Over the following weeks, things seemed to move quickly. Mark's world, which had once felt so distant to me, had now become something I was a part of. We spent more time together, working on the startup, brainstorming ideas, and going over the finer details of the business. It was exciting, but it was also overwhelming. I never expected the kind of transformation I was undergoing. As we worked together, there were moments when I could see Mark, the CEO, slipping away, and Mark, the man I had come to care for, emerging more clearly. He wasn't just the powerful business leader anymore. He was the man who would ask me about my day, listen intently when I shared my thoughts, and offer his opinions, not as a boss, but as someone who genuinely cared. But despite these changes, I still had doubts. The more time I spent in this high-powered world, the more I questioned my place in it. I was still the same person I had been before Mark came into my life. I still worked at the convenience store part-time. I still had a long list of things I wanted to achieve, but I didn't know if I was truly capable of handling this new life. I feared that I was just a project for Mark, someone he was trying to fix or rescue. My fears came to a head one evening when Mark asked me to meet him at the office for an important meeting. He sounded serious, more serious than usual. I arrived early, my mind racing with the possibilities of what he might want to discuss. When Mark walked in, he looked more intense than I had ever seen him. He motioned for me to sit down, his expression serious. "There's something I need to talk to you about," he said, his voice steady but with a hint of tension. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to read his expression. He leaned forward, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what we've been building together. The company, our relationship, everything. And I need to ask you a question." My heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was he going to tell me that I wasn't a good fit for this life, that I didn't belong in his world? "Do you see a future here?" he asked, his eyes searching mine for an answer. I blinked, taken aback by the question. It wasn't something I had expected to hear. I had been so focused on figuring out my place in his world that I hadn't stopped to think about the bigger picture. I had assumed that Mark was just asking because of the business, but now, I realized there was more to it. This was about us. "I don't know," I said honestly, my voice trembling slightly. "I want to believe in it, I really do. But I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm not enough for you, that I don't belong here." Mark didn't say anything at first. He just sat there, looking at me, letting my words hang in the air between us. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm. "I don't want you to feel like you have to be anything other than yourself. I don't want you to change for me or for anyone else. I believe in you, not because of your background or your experience, but because of who you are." His words washed over me, soothing some of the fears I had been carrying. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about being genuine. "I don't need you to have all the answers right now," he continued. "I just need you to be honest with me. Do you want to try to build something with me?" I felt the weight of his question sink in. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about the possibility of something deeper, something real. "Yes," I said, finally finding my voice. "I want to try, but I need you to know that I'm still figuring things out. I don't have it all figured out." Mark smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing. "I know," he said, "and I'm here with you, every step of the way." We both sat there in silence for a moment, the reality of our situation settling in. There was still so much to figure out, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone in this anymore. As we left the office that evening, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I wasn't just working for Mark anymore. I was working with him, building something together. It was the first time I truly felt like I was part of something bigger than myself. The next few months were a whirlwind. Mark and I continued to work closely, navigating the challenges of running a company while also trying to navigate our growing feelings for each other. It wasn't always easy, and there were times when I doubted myself. But Mark was always there to remind me that I was capable of more than I realized. We started making real progress, expanding the company, and seeing tangible results. I felt myself growing more confident, not just in my abilities, but in our partnership. And then, one day, after months of hard work and countless late nights, Mark invited me to a special dinner. "I have something important to ask you," he said as we sat down at the table. The look in his eyes was serious, but I could see a spark of something more. "I want to take this to the next level. Will you join me in this partnership, not just in business, but in life?" His question caught me by surprise. For a moment, I couldn't speak. But then, as I looked into his eyes, I knew exactly what I wanted. "Yes," I said, my voice steady and sure. "Yes, I will." That night, Mark and I made a promise to each other. We weren't just building a company. We were building a life together. I never imagined how quickly things would change after that night. Mark and I had made a commitment to each other, not just in business, but in life. The journey ahead seemed daunting, but it also felt right. We began to truly build something together. Our company, our lives, and more importantly, our trust in each other. The days blurred into one another as we worked tirelessly. I spent more time at the office than I ever thought I would, but it wasn't just the business I was building. It was this relationship with Mark. As we worked together, it became clear that our professional lives were intertwining with our personal lives in ways that I didn't expect. We found ourselves sharing more than just office updates. We shared our hopes, our fears, and even our insecurities. The conversations we had in private felt more important than anything we said during meetings. We were both scared of how much we were risking, scared of the unknown, but more than anything, scared of failing. Mark never let me doubt myself, though. Every time I hesitated, he was there, reminding me that we were in this together. His belief in me was something I had never felt before. But as things started to pick up, the pressure was mounting. Our company was beginning to expand, and with that came the challenges of managing growth, balancing relationships, and staying true to our vision. The higher we climbed, the more visible we became. People in the industry began to take notice, and that meant more media attention, more scrutiny, and more expectations. I knew the kind of pressure Mark had been under all along, but now, I was feeling it too. The media was starting to see me not just as Mark's partner, but as an individual who had risen up through the ranks. It was flattering, but at the same time, it made me nervous. I wasn't sure if I was truly ready to be in the spotlight like this. Mark could see it in my face. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, he asked me to meet him at the office again. This time, I wasn't sure what to expect. Was he going to tell me that we had to slow down, that the pressure was too much for both of us? When I walked into his office, Mark was standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. He turned to face me, and for a brief moment, I saw the weight of the world on his shoulders. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice calm but serious. "We've been working so hard, and things are changing so fast. I don't want us to lose sight of what matters most." I frowned, unsure where he was going with this. "What do you mean?" I asked. He walked toward me and took my hand. "I don't want us to get so caught up in the business that we forget why we started this in the first place. It's not just about growing the company. It's about building a life together, about creating something meaningful that we can both be proud of outside of all this." His words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on the growth and the success that I hadn't stopped to think about the bigger picture, the life we were building together, not just the company. "You're right," I said softly. "I've been so focused on proving myself that I lost sight of why I started this journey with you." Mark smiled and squeezed my hand. "It's okay. We're still figuring it out. But I think we need to take a step back and remember why we're doing this. We can't let all the noise drown out the real reason we're here." His words were a wake-up call, one I needed more than I realized. We had been running at full speed for so long that I had forgotten to look around and appreciate everything we had already built, together, as a team. I realized then that we weren't just building a company. We were building a future, and that meant taking care of each other along the way. The next few weeks were a turning point. Mark and I both made a conscious decision to slow down. We spent more time away from the office, focusing on ourselves and our relationship. We traveled together, not for business, but just to relax, to connect, to remember why we had started this journey in the first place. It was during one of those trips that I realized just how much I had grown, both personally and professionally. Mark had always been my support, but now, I was learning to support him in return. Our relationship had shifted from a partnership in business to a partnership in life. We were no longer just working together. We were living together, building something that was bigger than either of us. One evening, as we sat on a balcony overlooking a quiet beach, Mark turned to me with a serious expression. "I've been thinking about the future," he said, "and I want to ask you something important." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" I asked, my voice soft. He smiled, his eyes warm. "I want to continue building this life with you. Not just the business, but everything. Will you marry me?" His words left me speechless. I had always imagined this moment, but never like this. Never with someone who had become my best friend, my partner, my equal. I didn't have to think twice. "Yes," I said, my voice steady, my heart full. "Yes, I will marry you." In that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We had built something extraordinary, not just a company, but a life, a family, and a love that would last. I couldn't believe how much had changed in such a short time. Mark and I were finally engaged, and everything seemed to be falling into place. We had built something beautiful together, not just a business, but a life. But as much as I tried to stay grounded, the pressure was mounting. Our company was growing faster than I had ever imagined. The media attention had skyrocketed, and with it came the scrutiny of every move we made. I was starting to feel the weight of it all, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for the spotlight. But Mark was there, just as he had always been, steady and unwavering. He noticed my anxiety before I even had a chance to voice it. One evening, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, he pulled me aside in the office. "You're getting lost in the noise again," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "You're not alone in this. We're in this together." I had to admit, he was right. I had been so focused on the demands of the company that I had forgotten why we started this journey in the first place. It was about building something meaningful, something that would last, not just a business, but a future for the two of us. Mark took me by the hand and led me to the rooftop of our office building. The city skyline stretched out before us, the lights twinkling like 1,000 stars. We stood there for a moment, just taking in the view. "Look at all of this," Mark said, his voice low. "We've built this together, but it's just the beginning. What I'm offering you, what we're building together, it's more than just success. It's a life we can be proud of." His words filled me with a sense of calm. I realized then that the pressure wasn't from the outside world, it was from within. I had been so afraid of failing, of not living up to the expectations of everyone around us, that I had lost sight of why we were doing this in the first place. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready for everything that's coming." Mark turned to me, his expression softening. "It's okay to be scared. We all are. But we're stronger than we realize, and together, we can face anything." His words were a balm to my worried heart. It was true. Together, we could handle whatever came our way. We spent the rest of the evening on the rooftop, talking about our future and our dreams. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew that as long as we were together, we could face it with confidence. The following weeks were a whirlwind. The company continued to grow, and our roles within it became even more demanding. But we had found a rhythm. Mark and I balanced our work and personal lives, making sure to take time for each other. We traveled together, went on long walks, and even found time for quiet dinners at home. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. As the months went by, Mark and I grew even closer. We started talking about our wedding plans. I wanted something simple, intimate, a ceremony that reflected who we were, not just the public persona we had built. Mark agreed, and we began making arrangements. The planning was a welcome distraction from the constant demands of work. It was a chance for us to slow down and focus on each other. We picked a beautiful venue by the beach, a place where we could say our vows in front of just a few close friends and family. The day of the wedding arrived, and I found myself standing at the edge of the beach, staring out at the ocean. Mark was waiting for me at the altar, looking more handsome than I had ever seen him. He had always been the rock in my life, the one who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And now, here we were, ready to take the next step into our future. As I walked down the aisle, I could feel my heart racing. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything. I looked up at Mark as I reached the altar, and his smile made all my fears melt away. We exchanged vows, promising to support each other, to never give up, and to always be there for one another. The words felt like a promise, a commitment to a life we were building together. After the ceremony, we walked along the beach, hand in hand. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the ocean. I could feel the weight of the day lifting off my shoulders. This was what I had been working for. This was the life I had always dreamed of, and it was finally coming true. "I love you," Mark said, pulling me closer. "I love you too," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" He smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "Yes, this is just the beginning of everything we're going to do, everything we're going to build. Together." As we stood there on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together. Our love, our partnership, and our commitment to each other would be the foundation of everything we did from that moment forward. The challenges we had faced, the fears we had conquered, they had brought us here. And now, with our wedding day behind us, we were ready to start the next chapter of our lives, stronger than ever. Together, we could do anything. I woke up the morning after our wedding, still in disbelief at how much had changed in such a short amount of time. Mark and I were officially married, and as we settled into our new life together, the reality of what we had accomplished started to sink in. Our business was thriving, and our personal lives felt more in sync than ever before. We had always been partners in business, but now we were partners in everything. We spent the next few weeks enjoying our newlywed bliss, taking short trips to unwind and recharge. But even during our downtime, the demands of the company were never far from our minds. Mark's role as CEO had only grown more complex, and with it, the weight of our responsibilities. As much as we tried to escape it, the truth was that the world we were living in was moving at a speed we could hardly keep up with. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of meetings, Mark and I were sitting in our living room, sipping wine and talking about our future. It was one of those rare moments when we weren't focused on the business, just us, as a couple, talking about the life we were building together. Mark looked at me, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking a lot about what's next for us," he said, setting his glass down. "The business is doing well, and we've got so much ahead of us. But what do we want beyond that?" I paused, considering his words. I had been so caught up in everything happening around us that I hadn't really thought about the next chapter. "What do you mean?" I asked. Mark leaned forward, his eyes intense. "I'm not just talking about business. I'm talking about our personal lives, our family, our legacy. We've built this incredible company, but what do we want to leave behind? What's the bigger picture?" His words hit me harder than I expected. I had always been focused on the immediate, on the next project, the next milestone. But now, Mark was asking me to think about the long term. What was the legacy we wanted to create together? "I don't know," I admitted. "I think I've been so focused on success that I haven't really thought about what comes after. What do we want our future to look like?" Mark smiled softly. "That's what we need to figure out. It's not just about work. It's about making sure we're building a life that's fulfilling, that makes sense for us." As I sat there, listening to Mark's words, I realized how much I had taken for granted. We had been so focused on growing the company that I had neglected to think about the future outside of business. I wanted a life with meaning, a life that wasn't defined solely by success and achievements. "We should start thinking about what we really want," I said, finally feeling like I was understanding where Mark was coming from. "What do we want for ourselves, for our family, for the future?" Over the next few months, Mark and I started having deeper conversations about our values and what truly mattered to us. We discussed our dreams for the future, things we wanted to accomplish, places we wanted to visit, and experiences we wanted to share. It was during these discussions that we both realized we wanted to build something more than just a successful business. We wanted to create a lasting legacy that would reflect our values and the impact we wanted to have on the world. One afternoon, as we were brainstorming ideas for a new project, Mark turned to me with a thoughtful look. "What if we start a foundation?" he asked. "Something that focuses on giving back, on making a real difference in the lives of others?" I was struck by the idea. It was so different from anything we had done before. It wasn't about building wealth or growing our company. It was about helping others and leaving a mark on the world that wasn't defined by profit. "I love that idea," I said, feeling a surge of excitement. "Let's do it." From that moment on, Mark and I dedicated ourselves to launching our foundation. It became our new mission, one that felt more meaningful than anything we had done in business. We worked together to establish the foundation's goals and initiatives, focusing on areas like education, healthcare, and supporting underprivileged communities. The more we worked on the foundation, the more we realized how much we wanted to help others. It was a calling we had both been waiting for, and it felt like we were finally living out our true purpose. The foundation quickly gained traction, and we began to see the impact we were having on the communities we supported. It was a humbling experience, one that taught me so much about what truly matters in life. We had everything we could ever want: wealth, success, love, but the most fulfilling part of it all was knowing that we were using our resources to help others. As our foundation grew, so did our bond. We found ourselves even more connected, not just as business partners, but as a couple with a shared vision for the future. Our marriage, our business, and our foundation were all intertwined, each aspect reinforcing the other. And as we continued to build, I realized that this was the true legacy we had been working for all along. It wasn't about the money or the fame. It was about the lives we could change, the people we could help, and the love we could spread. With every step we took toward building our foundation, I knew that this was just the beginning of something far greater than we had ever imagined. I could feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, but it wasn't the weight of the business anymore. It wasn't the pressure of growth or the constant demands of managing a rapidly expanding company. It was something far more significant, our foundation. Mark and I had created something special, something that was changing lives, but with that came responsibility. The foundation was growing faster than we could have ever imagined, and as we expanded, so did the challenges. More people were depending on us, more communities were looking to us for support, and the need for careful decision-making became more urgent than ever. Mark and I were no longer just business partners. We were partners in a mission, and that mission was far bigger than us. One evening, as we sat down after a long day, I looked at Mark and saw the exhaustion in his eyes. He had always been the strong one, the one who carried the weight of everything. But lately, I had noticed the toll it was taking on him. We're doing good things, but sometimes it feels like we're not doing enough, he said, his voice tired. I know, I replied softly. I've been feeling it too. The more we do, the more we realize how much more needs to be done. It was true. Every time we thought we had made a difference, there was always another challenge waiting. We had started with small goals, helping a few families here and there, but now we were facing the reality of scaling. We were meeting resistance in places we hadn't expected. Politics, bureaucracy, and the complexity of global issues were starting to slow our progress. We need to find a way to scale this, to make a bigger impact, Mark continued. But we also need to be careful not to lose ourselves in it. His words made me stop and think. I had been so focused on making the foundation bigger, on reaching more people, that I hadn't considered the personal cost. Our love, our marriage, had always been about balance. We had learned to juggle the demands of work and personal life, but now, it felt like the scales were tipping. We couldn't afford to lose sight of why we started this journey in the first place. What if we take a step back for a bit? I suggested. What if we focus on the quality of what we're doing, rather than just the quantity? Let's find the right partnerships, the right people, and build a foundation that truly makes a difference, not just one that grows for the sake of growth. Mark nodded, a look of relief washing over his face. You're right. I think we've been chasing the wrong thing. It's not about how big we get. It's about how many lives we touch in a meaningful way. It was a pivotal moment for us. We both realized that we didn't need to conquer the world in a day. We needed to take it one step at a time, making sure that every decision we made was driven by our core values, not by the pressure to succeed. Over the next few months, we refocused. We streamlined our efforts, working more closely with local communities, creating long-term partnerships with organizations that shared our vision. We weren't just handing out money or resources. We were investing in people, in sustainable change. And with that shift came a renewed sense of purpose. The foundation was no longer just a way to give back. It was an embodiment of who we were as a couple. It reflected our commitment to not just being successful, but to being impactful. As our work with the foundation continued to grow, so did our personal connection. Mark and I found ourselves not only working together, but growing together. We learned to communicate more openly, to support each other in ways we hadn't before. We were no longer just building a company. We were building a life that was meaningful, both professionally and personally. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, but never quite knew how to approach. After months of planning, we were ready to announce the launch of a new initiative under our foundation. It was going to be our largest project yet, aimed at providing education and healthcare to underserved communities around the world. It was everything we had worked for, everything we believed in, and it felt like the perfect way to solidify our legacy. As we stood together in front of a room full of supporters and partners, Mark turned to me with a smile. "This is it," he said softly, his hand gently squeezing mine. "This is what we've been building." The pride I felt in that moment was overwhelming. We had done it, not alone, but together. And as we moved forward, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them as a team. With each new initiative, with each new partnership, we were not only making a difference in the world, but we were also growing stronger together. The journey had brought us closer than I ever thought possible. And as we continued to build, I knew that we were living out the very legacy we had always dreamed of, one of love, compassion, and lasting impact. As the years passed, Mark and I found ourselves reflecting on everything we had accomplished, not just in business, but in life. The foundation had grown far beyond our expectations, and the changes we had made in the lives of countless individuals were something that neither of us could have imagined when we first started. We had faced challenges together, seen our dreams evolve, and somehow, we had come out stronger on the other side. Our marriage had been tested in ways we never expected. The demands of running a company, managing a foundation, and staying connected to each other had been overwhelming at times. But through it all, we had learned to prioritize what mattered. We had learned that success wasn't just about what we built. It was about who we were when we were together and the impact we could have on others. I looked at Mark one evening, as we sat together on the balcony of our home, watching the sunset. "Do you ever think about where we started?" I asked, my voice soft, the weight of everything we had accomplished finally catching up to me. Mark smiled, his eyes reflecting the fading light of the day. "All the time," he said. "Sometimes it feels like a dream, like it couldn't possibly be real. But then I look at everything we've done, and I know that it is. And it's just the beginning." He reached over and took my hand in his, squeezing it gently. "We've come so far, but I still feel like we're just getting started." His words filled me with a sense of peace. We had been through so much, more than we had ever expected, and yet, we still had so much to give. We had grown, individually and together, and now, we were looking toward the future with new dreams, new goals, and new purpose. The foundation was thriving, and with each passing year, we saw more lives being touched by the work we were doing. Mark and I were more connected than ever. Our partnership had transformed from a professional relationship into something far deeper. We weren't just working for success anymore. We were working to leave a legacy that would last long after we were gone. One afternoon, we sat down together to discuss the next phase of our foundation's work. We had already accomplished so much, but we knew there was more to be done. We talked about the long-term impact we wanted to have, the communities we still needed to reach, and the vision we had for the future. It was a conversation we had had many times before, but this time, it felt different. We were no longer just dreaming of what we could accomplish, we were planning it. As the foundation expanded, so did our personal lives. We started to think about the future in a way we never had before. What do we want to leave behind? How could we ensure that our legacy would continue to grow and make a difference? These questions weighed heavily on us, but instead of feeling like a burden, they felt like a challenge, one that we were ready to take on together. Our journey had been one of growth and transformation, but it had also been about rediscovering what truly mattered. It wasn't the accolades or the money. It wasn't the recognition or the success. It was about the people we touched, the love we shared, and the difference we made. Looking back, I realized that everything had led to this moment. All the struggles, the triumphs, the decisions, and the sacrifices had brought us here, together, stronger, and more committed than ever to the future. We had built something extraordinary, but it wasn't the company or the foundation that defined us. It was the love we shared, the life we had built together, and the legacy we were leaving for the future. Mark turned to me that evening, his expression soft and full of love. "We've come a long way," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And there's no one I'd rather have by my side as we continue this journey." I smiled, feeling a sense of contentment wash over me. "Me too," I whispered. "There's no one else I'd want to do this with." We stood together, looking out over the horizon, knowing that the path ahead was still long, but we were ready to face it. Together, as we moved forward, I knew that we had everything we needed. We had each other, we had a shared vision, and we had the belief that what we were doing mattered. And that, more than anything, was the legacy we would leave behind. It wasn't about being remembered for the business we built or the foundation we created. It was about the love we shared, the lives we touched, and the difference we made. In the end, that was all that truly mattered. In this inspiring millionaire story, we follow the journey of two individuals who rise from humble beginnings to build a successful business and a meaningful life together. As their partnership grows, they navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship while discovering the true value of love, family, and legacy. Through their shared experiences, we learn that success is not just measured by wealth, but by the impact we make on others. Their story is a testament to the power of hard work, dedication, and kindness, and how it can transform not only their lives, but also the lives of those around them. This millionaire story takes you on a journey of personal growth, challenges, and ultimate triumph, showing that with the right partner and vision, anything is possible. In a world that often values material success, this story proves that true wealth lies in the relationships we build and the lives we change. This millionaire story is not just about business, but about building a life filled with love, purpose, and lasting impact. Join us as we explore the power of kindness, partnership, and commitment in this unforgettable millionaire story that will leave you inspired.